But for today's talk, somebody did ask me for, and I could see just how much they wanted to have this talk about how to deal with some of the difficult problems of having responsibilities and the suffering which comes from having responsibilities. Why do we have responsibilities? I'm supposed to be a senior monk. I'm supposed to be with tons of responsibilities. But I often reflected that if I keep all those responsibilities, they will drive me crazy. And I remember just asking one of my mentors, and it was Ajahn Chah's most senior monk, a monk called Ajahn Brahm. And he's been over to our monastery, and he's been over to this place many, many times in his life. And I remember just going to see him, paying respect to him, because I respected his wisdom so much. And we have a common greeting, for monks. It's like in the Thai tradition. You say to the senior monk, especially if you're in a position of responsibility like a teacher or an abbot, you ask him, are your monks easy to train? And so I asked him that. Are your monks, he was the head of Wat Papong after Ajahn Chah passed away. All those monks, are they easy to train? Hundreds of them. He said, oh yeah, they're very, very easy to train. I said, how? And he said, well, if they want to go left, I allow them to go left. If they want to go right, I let them go right. That's why they're so easy to train. And straight away I thought, that makes no sense to me. But it's when they don't make any sense, that's where you realize there's a much deeper message behind that. And what that deeper message was well explained by another story I love telling of, this is in the Chinese art of war. Please excuse me for saying something to do with China and something to do with war. I think maybe if the ACO is listening to this talk, there'll be a few red flags would come up. There's nothing to do with that. But what it was they were saying there was a general in the army of China who had perfect discipline. His soldiers would always do what the general said for them to do. And then the emperor said, what's your secret? How come they're so well disciplined? Because how come they get up so early in the morning? How they train? How they, go into battle or to defend or whatever? How could you ever train them to do that? And that's where this general said, I only tell my soldiers to do what they want to do. That's why he was such a successful leader. In your company, in your family, in your group of whatever you're running, have you ever learned how to lead in that way? Only to tell, the people who follow your orders to do what they want to do. That's often what I tell the monks, like Venerable Kimberler. You can do what you want to do. Why does he sit nice and peacefully and always look after me as my attendant? And the reason is because it's what that general had done beforehand to motivate people, to teach people how it's in their interest and everybody else's interest to do what we might call the right thing. And that's what I've been doing for many years, to teach the monks who are under my guidance as long as I can, to please understand why it's good to be restrained, why it's good never to sort of talk loudly, why it's good never to tease any... Well, actually, I can't say that because I tease the monks a lot. Why it is good, to have few possessions. I love having few possessions. I've just come back, from Thailand on Tuesday morning, in the middle of the night. And when I was there, you could actually just to see just how when these ideas are really strong inside of you, how they can have a wonderful effect on so many people. For example, I was teaching a meditation retreat over in Thailand, and when I teach a meditation retreat, there is a schedule, but I ask people, don't keep the schedule. Getting up in the morning is voluntary. You don't have to get up at 5 p.m. You can always get up earlier if you want to. And that's not a joke. What it means is you're not being forced to get up early in the morning. You get up early because you like to. And that's been brainwashed into people beforehand. It's brainwashed in by many different techniques. One way of brainwashing a person is actually to tell them, just this is not a meditation retreat in a normal sense. We call it Club Med. You've heard that before, but that's actually powerful. When you look at the place where you're doing some meditation, I sometimes call it Happy Hour at Dhammaloka Center. And I say that not telling any untruths. If you regard it as happiness, if you regard it as joyful, if you can find the meaning in it that way, then you can find this is what you love doing. And for me as a monk, it's almost my 50th year as a monk. I know there's another monk who's listening to this online. We were just joking beforehand. I just told you know what's coming. Because I'm a bit rebellious, people told me don't tell this. But I was saying, soon in December, it'll be my 50th anniversary as a monk. 50 years since I was ordained as a full monk. It's a long time of service, being a monk for such a long time. And it's usually the case after 50 years, you should retire. But then we were just joking. What would happen, if I retired? What would I do? And we were just comparing like horses. What happens to a horse? Because I've worked like a horse, and just serving so many people. What happens to a horse when it retires? They get put out to pasture until it gets unable to really be healthy, and then you go to the glue factory. So would that be good if I went to the glue factory? No one's laughing. I thought that was hilarious. What's wrong with going to the glue factory? There's a lot of glue in here. It makes it useful. Okay. But anyhow, that I don't think I'm going to be ever able to get away with retiring. One of the reasons why I can't retire is that I've got no income. I haven't saved up any retirement benefits. I haven't got any superannuation. I ain't got anything except peace. That's really all one needs. Do you save up for things? I don't. And sometimes we try and collect donations for something, but the more donations we have, I'm going to get into trouble for this again. I don't mind getting into trouble. The trouble's my middle name, Ajahn Brahm. Sorry. But sometimes, if we do get more donations, then it means we have to do more work. If we haven't got any donations, if the bank balance is zero, then we can't do any work. We're free, we can relax. But shouldn't we actually finish things off before we can relax? Do you ever have too much work to do? Whatever you're up to in life? Especially in the operations manager, in her room, you can always see that computer on there. How can you take a rest? The only way you can take a rest is that great story. I don't know if you've heard it before, you probably have, I'm just counting on you forgetting some of the details, which was Ajahn Buddhadasa, this monk in South Thailand. And when he was building his hall, it got to the point where it came to our rains retreat. You already mentioned the opening ceremonies of our rains retreat in the different monasteries. And during the rains retreat, it's a time when the monks don't have to travel anywhere. So we don't have projects to build anything. We just spend all of that time being a good example of peaceful monks. When you first saw the monks and nuns in your monasteries, did you ever think they had to work so hard? And I was telling Leha I was working my butt off in Thailand, so she wanted to inspect my butt, see if it was true or not. You did. I mean, not sort of, no, inappropriately, so I just turned around and said, no, it's still the same. But anyway, he was saying at least during 3 months of the year to take a break, so we don't do any building unless we really have to because of some emergencies. And so Ajahn Buddhadasa sent his workers home. He said, you can come back after the rains retreat is finished. And when a visitor came, they saw that hut, that hall, and they said, obviously, when is it going to be finished? And he said, it is finished. What do you mean it's finished? There's no glass in the windows. There's no tiles on the roof. There's no paint on the timber. Are you going to leave it like this? You know, sometimes you could do that as an architectural, artistic statement. I've seen all these buildings these days, like we have the RAC building over here, and it's not a straight wall. It's got straight walls, but it's all over the place, a diamond. It looks like the architect got drunk. I might get sued for that, I don't know. But sometimes it's artistic statements. But I thought, he said, was it that? He said, no. He said, but how can you call it finished? And that's where the monk replied, sir, what's done is finished. And I love that statement. Please quote me on it. When you go to work on Monday and you haven't finished the job you promised to do over the weekend, and your boss said, is it finished? Say, yes, boss. What's done is finished. Can you get away with that? It depends who your boss is. Leha, who's your boss? It's me. So you can get away with that whatever you want. What's done is finished. Is that okay, Mrs. President? She acceded, so you saw that. Otherwise, you get so tired out. You get stressed, burnt out. If you do get burnt out, there's something wrong with the system you're working in. So can you actually say what's done is finished and take a break? That's one of the ways of overcoming stress. Again, I'm a very fortunate monk. A few times when I was in Thailand that I was not really clear what time the people were going to come and give me my one meal of the day. I just got up early, and when I was waiting for them, I practiced what I call in-between time. I love noticing that much of your life, you waste moments, is in between. Maybe to say this evening, you've arrived here, you're sitting down in a chair or on a cushion. You've arrived, but we haven't started a meeting yet. Sometimes it happens that after the meeting you may be waiting to talk to me, and you're doing nothing, you're just sitting there. It's what we call the in-between moments of life. In those in-between moments, they're precious. They're some of the best times to meditate, the best times to relax. But what we see these days is in those in-between moments of life, a lot of people pick out they call them smartphones, I call them dumb phones. And the reason is because, do you own a smartphone? No, you don't. The smartphone owns you. It's true if you look at it. The smartphone is always guiding you and pulling you and pay me attention. The real owner is the smartphone owns you. It's amazing just when people come on a retreat. We chose Jhana Grove as our main retreat centre here in Western Australia because it was in a valley. It was in a dark spot. It was hard to get mobile signals there. Until eventually, you saw the meditators, I don't know if they really realised I saw them, just walking up the hill. They'd found we can get a good signal. Why did you do that? Can't you enjoy just the peace and quiet? You got a good excuse not to be bothered by mobile phones. You deserve that peace. A lot of time you're not being paid on the weekend, so why not turn your phone off? Don't even look for a signal. Instead, in those in-between moments of life where you have some free time, take that to just meditate and be peaceful. Otherwise you find your free time becomes zero. And I remember just where I was having my in-between moments, I got up, had a shower, and went to sit because somebody was going to come and offer me the morning meal at a certain time early in the morning in Bangkok. And as I was sitting down in this little room where I was staying on Monday morning, it was a place, I'd never been there for about 4 or 5 years. It was a place where I'd always stay when I had some business to do in Bangkok as a monk. I remember this was a place where Ajahn Chah would stay when he was sick or when he needed some business to be done. He'd stay in this beautiful house in the garden in this place in Sukhumvit Road. And it was quiet, just for monks. And when he was staying down there, I remember other monks would stay later on. Some of these great monks in the tradition in Thailand, and Ajahn Plian and Ajahn Ben, and each one of these monks would meditate there, obviously. And I remember sitting down there, and it was so easy to meditate there, even though I was tired. I was into the mood of meditation, and it was so easy to get very peaceful there. Just like Bodhinyana Monastery, in the main hall there, for those of you who've been there, it's such an easy place to get meditation depth, simply because all the people who have meditated there in the past, so many people get deeper meditation there than ever before. So I was making the best use of these in-between moments. I never knew when the lunch was going to come, and I didn't really worry about it coming. I was happily just sitting there getting very peaceful and very calm. Sometimes people feel they don't have enough time because they don't make use of the in-between moments of life. They don't know how to be still and how to get into that quiet place inside where much of the wisdom of life becomes very clear. What is suffering? That was the main talk I was supposed to give today. And the reason why it's suffering is because we realize we try to control this life when we can't. What do you want in life? And isn't it wonderful if you already have enough? You don't need anything, you don't want anything. You're just sitting here with everything in the world which you think you need, or you think other people's needs, is seen through. So you don't try and control life. If the monks want to go left, you let them go left. If you want them to go right, you allow them to go right. And most of the time the monks don't go anywhere. They stay still. Why would you want to move? What is the cause of suffering? The cause of suffering is not being happy where you are. How can you be happy where you are? Even if you're old and tired or hungry or want to go to the toilet or want anything. If you can learn how to let go of all this wanting, and whatever's left, let it be. When you know how to let this moment be, instead of trying to change it, when you're caring for it, not trying to change it, when you're happy with your partner, instead of wanting to change her or him, can't you find peace? I said this little anecdote a little bit earlier. This was in the reception area. I just want to repeat it because it's a beautiful anecdote. It was just one of these elderly Singaporeans now, and she said when she got married, her father took her new husband aside to give him some advice. He started off by saying, "You probably love my daughter very much." And his new son-in-law said, "She's wonderful, she's delightful, she's an amazing wife. I'm so lucky to have found her. She's beautiful, gorgeous." And he kept on saying this until the father-in-law said, "Yes, that's what it's always like when you fall in love and get married. But," he said, "in 2 or 3 years' time, you will start to see the faults and defects in my daughter. When you start to see her faults and defects, please remember this. If my daughter never had those faults and defects to begin with, she would have married someone much better than you, son-in-law." I'm glad you're awake and are laughing. So you find that whoever you have in life, nothing is ever perfect in the sense that it's exactly what you want. And if it was what you want, in life, in meditation, in your children, if they were perfect kids, they would not be real. Sometimes another love can change perceptions. But when it's real, you find they are just kids. I still remember just visiting the closest I have to children, which were a niece and nephew, my brother's children. And I remember that my brother was busy doing something, so I was in the room just with my niece and my nephew. And when I was with them, they were asking me, what was our dad, my brother, really like as a kid? So I started being honest with them about what he was really like and all the trouble he got into. And they were fascinated. And they said, "Can you tell us another story? You know how much I love telling stories." And they told another story about my brother. I told another story about my brother when he was young. I said, "Can you tell another story?" And that's when my brother came in. He said, "What are you telling them?" to me. I'm telling them all the truth about how you grew up, how I grew up. I was the same. I never was a perfect kid. I haven't told you all about the present I gave my mother, haven't I? Remember, what was that? Someone's nodding yes, someone's nodding no. It doesn't matter, I should never ask, have you heard this before, because I'm going to tell it anyway. Just get it over with. I forget exactly the age, but I was really young, maybe 8 or 9 or something. And I was a very innovative kid. That's why I do things like foot meditation. You know, just learn how to do things slightly differently. And it was her birthday. And so I had a nice box and some wrapping paper. I was only that young, 10 or something, or 9 or whatever. And I went to the shop this was in Acton, in West London. There was just a food craze at the time for mashed potato and jellied eels. Not real eels. And so instead of actually getting the cooked variety, I asked the shop owner, I had my money collected up, saved up, for a live eel. So I bought a live eel, about that long, slithery, and I put it in the box, and I wrapped it up with this beautiful wrapping paper. And I tied a bow on the box, and I put a little greeting card. To Mummy, happy birthday from your son. And I must have been a great actor. There's another potential career which was dashed by when I became a monk. But I don't know if I've told you this on the side here. The primary school I went to and the high school I went to, that there was another famous person who went to that school, and that was, wow. Anyway, sorry? No. It was, apparently he became, anyway, I shouldn't watch more TV. I don't watch any, that's my problem. It was Professor Snape in, is that Harry Potter? Yeah. So we went to the same school together. Do I look like him? But anyway, so I'd had some acting skills. And I gave this to my mother, happy birthday, Mummy. And imagine, this is not a suggestion for your daughter to get this as your next birthday present, but I did it. And I put the little eel in there, and I gave it to my mummy. Happy birthday, Mummy. And she almost cried. Surprise present. Oh, thank you so much. It was so sweet. I'd chosen it all by myself. And so she opened it up, and she actually did cry. What I do remember was that the eel, it lifted up its head and looked at my mum. It couldn't have been trained better. And the important thing about my wisdom as a kid, this is for you, always have your exit strategy, so you know where to run and hide from your mummy if you get in trouble. So I hid in there for a couple of hours until the heat went down. Was I a good kid? Yes. You got many different ideas of what goodness is. But my mother sort of accepted that. But the reason I tell that story, that you don't start off as perfect. You just take these silly little things you do. And I was telling my children what I got up to, what my brother got up to when we were growing up, and they were loving every moment of it. It was making their father real, not this fantasy of some saint in the house. He was real. And that reality which you face in life is so important. And when you inspire people with that reality, with that honesty, and with that care, you learn from mistakes. And when you learn, what you learn from mistakes, you learn how to care for people. That's more fun than hurting people out of your own fun. And when you learn how to care, that eventually made me a good school teacher when I was a school teacher, and also hopefully a good monk. And because many of the monks care for me, I don't need to tell them, don't go that way, don't go this way. They know the way to go themselves. That's how you train monks. That's how you train yourself. When you have any difficulty in life, any suffering in life, what do? Follow your heart, not your head. You know, too often that people just have all these rules and regulations. I even tend to rebel against those these days. And the more I rebel against the rules and regulations, the more I keep my precepts. How come that happens? How that happens is I don't see any point in harming others, in hurting animals. Even I was talking to someone the last time I saw them here. I saw them this morning at a dana. I was telling them just how much I sympathize with things like mice or rats. Because the last animal I ever killed in my life was a mouse, just after my father died. I was just 16, and my mother was staying alone, and a mouse was in the house, and she was terrified of mice. And then I caught it in a trap and killed it. And to this day I felt so bad about that. That was, how many, 46 years ago, is that right? Yeah. No, 56 years ago. And I can still see that mouse. A mouse or a rat, I'm not quite sure which. But it was a beautiful animal. It was still warm when I took it to the bin where I was supposed to go. And I felt so guilty for that. I was stroking it when I was taking it to the rubbish bin. And I shouldn't have done it, shouldn't have killed it. And if I did kill it, I shouldn't have taken it to a rubbish bin. It was worth much more than that. It was a living being, it was beautiful. You could touch it, stroke it, it was clean. And when, from that time I saw it, you felt, you never want to kill any animal or anybody. You could feel it. And that little animal had a life somewhere. And I kind of do you like mice? Oh, excellent. So when this person was saying they were feeding the mice outside their house, and the husband said, no, you should kill those mice. So I said, no, I'm with you, the woman. Please be kind to those mice. My strategy was to feed those mice lots and lots of delicious food until they get so fat they can't squeeze in the holes which allow them entry to your house. And that's a good way to keep them out, with lots of fun and happiness. That's why if any of you go to our monasteries, there's so many birds and other little animals down there. They never harm you. They will never hurt you. You know, your job is to learn how to live in harmony with them. And I really enjoy, I must admit, just when I go out for alms round over in monastery, just go down the stairs and all these lovely parrots are waiting for you. You've known them for years. They have a long lifespan, parrots, and they're gorgeous. You know, sometimes they're a bit cheeky, but I remember some of the monks or people like Amandus, they put, oh, you've seen this, haven't you, Nicholas? They put little tidbits or something, like like a cashew nut or something, up their arms. And the little parrot just goes in there, gets the cashew out, and just flies away afterwards. It trusts the monks and the residents at Bodhinyana Monastery. Because of that trust, it's such a beautiful thing. You know, people of different species, human beings and animals, they can live in harmony together and peace together. And I love that sort of scenario. So because of that, it may be different than many people think. I love to live in harmony with all the different things which happen to me in life. Sometimes you get disappointed, it doesn't go the way you want it to, but that's not suffering for me. I find that it's just a different way of looking at life, and sometimes when they don't go the way you want them to, you learn so much more from that. You say thank you for that. I remember telling, who was talking to me about this earlier, I remember just when I was again a young man, oh that's right, I started off the scariest moment of my life so far. He's smiling, he knows what's coming. I was a young man, just at university still, and one of my friends at university got married. So he had to be at the ceremony. And afterwards, there was 4 or 5 of us, were hanging around, just talking to each other. And our conversation, what our stupid conversation was, we say, who's going to be next? And so we looked and we said, yeah, Jeff, he's going to be next. And we thought, looked, and no one will want him. And then they looked at me and pointed at me and said, my lay name was Peter before. Peter, he'll be next. And they looked at me. And then my friends, so-called friends, looked at me and said, no one would marry him. And then the scary moment happened. There was a young girl standing next to me, and she whispered in my ear, I would. Honestly, I was terrified. This is the scariest moment of my life. There's nothing wrong with her, it's just me. I just wasn't interested. But then later on, I often told people, one of the heroes, one of the girls I liked the most in my life, she dumped me, one of my girlfriends. And after she dumped me, thank you so much. If I met her today, I'd bow down to her 3 times. Thank you for allowing me to be free and so I could become a monk. I much more enjoyed that. So that's one of the reasons why these things happen quite naturally in life. I must admit that one of the reasons why it was hopeless me having relationships, because I had nice meditation, I enjoyed the meditation much more than relationships. It's just me. Just when you get into nice deep meditation, there's much less suffering, much more peaceful and beautiful. And I realized that I didn't need relationships. In fact, since that time I've had a huge number of relationships, even as a monk, with each one of you. I come back here, recognize all your faces, and I got this wonderful sense of your family. I've been saying that a lot recently, because I tried to explain how I feel. I went over to Thailand, I saw people I hadn't seen there for years, since pre-COVID time. And these are all like friends. People I've known for a long time, who've fed me, I've answered questions, they've gone on retreats, they've looked after me. And I don't just look upon you as clients. I don't look upon you as just students or disciples. I look upon you as like family is the best word. And each one of you come from different countries. But you've taught a lot to me over the years and got to know so many of you. Even though many of you just heard my talks or seen these books, like the Cha-Ching books, that's in over in Indonesia. Still, that's got a bond of, I care, I give, you want to serve, whatever you can do. And that's kind of the relationship which I feel on this end. I don't know how you feel. And that's more than enough to have that compassion and kindness to care for each one of you as much as I possibly can. And that also means there's no suffering with that, because you just give, expecting nothing back in return. That's the way I've been taught by someone like an Ajahn Brahm. Give, but don't want anything back. Don't expect anything back. You just give to serve, and the joy is just seeing that people's problems and difficulties kind of vanish. It's not an intellectual thing which I'm talking about. When I was young, I wrote books, and they were intellectually straight down the line. Now, what is suffering? And the suffering is what actually binds you to the world. When it's time to let it go, you can't do it. Suffering is like the heavy weight which you carry on your back, instead of just allowing yourself to put that down from time to time, so you can feel free. You don't need anything, you don't want anything, and you don't rely on other people, for your sense of self-esteem or self-worth. It's wonderful when you can see worth in things which other people can't see. I already mentioned about every time I bow to the Buddha statue, virtue, peace and compassion. That's why I bow, that's what I worship, what I found worthy. And the virtue, the peace. My goodness, what an amazing thing peace is. I keep sort of lingering on peace. Just peace in the world. It's wonderful to come back to Perth. Don't read the newspapers, just look at the puzzles in the newspapers, because I like them. Please don't buy me any. I've got enough. So it's just that peace in this world and that calmness. A lot of time when you just talk about things or see newspapers, I imagine if you see the news on the internet, on the TV, it's all about what goes wrong in the world. And there's more people who just don't go wrong, they do amazing things in this life. And it's so peaceful, so kind and so caring. And unfortunately that doesn't get put in newspapers. Nobody wants to see that. I don't know why, I love seeing it. What was the last really nice good news story you saw? Some of those really kind good news stories, always one which just comes to my mind. It was a magistrate up in the north of Western Australia, and this young indigenous kid came up to him. He'd been in trouble for so many times, he was in trouble again. And the magistrate just took one look at him, and he should have really put him in detention or something. But the magistrate took one look at him, in trouble again, and just said, look, it doesn't work putting you in detention. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to buy you a BMX bike if you keep your nose clean for 3 months or something. He said, I'm serious about this. And so the kid actually was surprised he wasn't put in detention. He was shown some respect and compassion instead. And he kept his nose clean. And in this newspaper article was the magistrate offering this little kid a BMX bike. Thank you for being out of trouble. Well, no, that's kind of beautiful. I think, like acts of compassion, doing things in a totally different way than is expected, and it kind of works. There's one kid in the world finds you don't have to use punishment, to make a difference in a person's life. Just somebody was caring for me, unexpectedly. And those kind of good stories, that kind of inspires me. And I love those stories of original ideas of compassion, of kindness, of wisdom. That's how suffering is overcome. So a lot of time when you are worrying about how to deal with the suffering of life, don't just do it the old ways, and don't just do it Ajahn Brahm way. Don't keep asking him for answers. There's so much of life I just don't know. Still many people ask me for marriage guidance. Come on. Sometimes there's a few things you can add to it, but my knowledge of that is very, very limited. But when it comes to meditation, you can give some advice, because I do so much of that. And just recently, just learning just what you actually do is not really important. What you're focusing on is not important. It's just how you are letting go, how you're renouncing things, how you're freeing yourself. And you're not doing any meditation trying to get something. You're meditating to see how much you can let go of, how free you can become. One of the similes, and this will be the last simile, so I can take some questions afterwards. I haven't said this in years, about the hot air balloon. Imagine you're a hot air balloon, and you stay on the ground because there's too much ballast, too much extra baggage in the basket. So you throw as much of that baggage as you possibly can out of the basket, and you rise up into the air. And it's really nice up into the air, a sense of freedom. And then you find it only goes so far, so now you have to throw out your lunch. That goes out of the basket as well, and you go higher. And then you go really high, you throw everything out, and then you find it only goes so far. How do you go higher? To become a stream winner, you have to throw something else out. So you untie the basket and let that fall. That's, the five senses in the body. It's what we call a basket case. And once you let go of the basket, you go really high. And then you wonder, what have to I discard next? This basket is gone, there's no other baggage. The only thing you can let go of now is you. So you let go of the balloon. And you vanish to the ground, and the balloon flies off to Nibbana. That's that's my hot air balloon simile. It's not accurate, but it's pretty accurate, pretty good idea. So that's how we let go of suffering. You have to let go of everything. You don't need anything. You're free. Okay, so I better stop, otherwise I keep going on forever. So thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.